welcome to my kitchen. I'm Christina. Today I'm making homemade focaccia bread. The first rise takes about an hour, the second rise is only 20 minutes long, and I really enjoy making homemade bread at home. So I'm going to get started and show you how to make it too. Okay, in this first step, I have my water measured out. I have 1 1/3 cups water and my packet of yeast. And if you have a jar of yeast, you want to measure out 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, or if you need to weigh it out, it's 7 grams of yeast and 2 teaspoons of sugar. And you want your water to be at 110 degrees, and I'm just gonna see where I'm at here. I'm at 109.4, which is close enough. So I'm going to add my sugar and the yeast, and I'm just gonna stir it. And I'll let this sit for about 10 minutes. All right, so my yeast is nicely activated, nice and frothy, so it's ready to go. So I'm gonna go on with my next step. I have my flour measured out. I have 3 1/2 cups measured out. And I have 2 teaspoons of salt, so I'm gonna add the salt to the flour first. And I'm just gonna use my whisk to mix it in. All right, now I'm going to add the olive oil, and this is a 1/4 cup of olive oil. And I'm just going to mix this gently here. And next comes the yeast. And I'm just gently going to incorporate it all. Using my spatula, I'm just going to try to mix it well together. And my next step will be to form it into a ball, and then I'm going to knead it for about 5 minutes. And I'm choosing to do this by hand. I just like to knead my dough by hand, but you can certainly do this with a KitchenAid if you have one, with the dough, using the dough hook. Okay, next with my clean hands, I'm going to grab a little bit of flour, and now I'm going to go in there and start kneading this, getting this to form into a ball. Okay, that's probably good enough. Now I go right on my counter and start kneading it. So I knead it easily with using the heel of my hand, and with my right hand I just kind of flip the dough over and then just push down on it. You can certainly use both hands. And as you can see, it starts out a little crumbly, but then as you work the dough, you're able to pick up the rest of the flour. And I'm going to do this for 5 minutes. Okay, I'm at 5 minutes here. Next, I'm going to get a bowl and add about 1 to 2 teaspoons of olive oil in the bowl. And I'm just going to rub the oil all over the inside of the bowl, all the way up to the top. because as your dough rises, we don't want it to stick to the bowl. So now my dough is ready to rest and rise, and I'm using a clean dish towel to cover it. And then I like to put a heavy plate on top of it, and I pull my towel so that it's nice and taut. That way it doesn't sag and touch the dough. So next I'm going to put this over by my stove and let it rest and let it rise for 45 minutes to an hour. So here's the dough at the beginning stage, and we'll take a peek at it in about 45 minutes and see how far it rises. All right, so while I'm waiting for my dough to rise, I am going to take some of my rosemary that I cut from my plant that I have on my kitchen counter. In case some of you are wondering, I do grow herbs inside, and I do have a special LED grow light that helps them stay healthy and helps them keep growing. And as you can see here, just remove the stems by pulling back on the stalk, and that's it. I'm going to take a little bunch here, and I'm just going to chop them roughly. That was the timer on my oven, so I'm almost ready to bake. All right, so I'm all set here. All right, so here's my dough after an hour total. I did an additional 15 minutes. With dough, it's kind of tricky. It all depends on the temperature outside, the temperature in your home, the humidity in your home. So, you know, you can decide if your dough looks good after 45 minutes or if it needs a full hour. So this is my favorite part, where my dough has risen, and now I'm just going to punch it down and get all the air out of it. And I like to leave it in a round form as it is here in the bowl. And next I'm just going to slide it onto my sheet pan, which I have lined with parchment paper. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to, with my hands, just stretch it out to the shape I want it to be in. And I want it round because I have a really cute platter that I like to put it in. So you're basically getting all the air out as best you can. You could make it rectangle shape if you prefer, or round. Okay, so this looks pretty good to me here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make some little dimples in the dough. And I'm just going to do that with my hand. I'm going to take my 3 fingers and I'm just going to poke through the dough. It's okay to push all the way down. You want to make a nice indentation in your dough. Once I'm done with this step, I'm going to cover it again and let it rise for an additional 20 minutes. Now if you missed a spot, I'm just going to go back here. I missed a few spots where I can add some more holes. That's looking good. Now I'm going to take my towel and cover it, set the timer for 20 minutes. All right, time to take a peek at the bread. It's looking good. And now I am going to add olive oil. Just gonna drizzle it over the top. And I am going to add my fresh rosemary. If you want to use dry instead, then I would add the rosemary to the dough and knead it in the dough versus sprinkling it on top. When it's dry, it's better in the dough. But today we're using fresh. So my rosemary's down, just a little bit of salt, And next it's ready for the oven. My oven is preheated to 400 degrees. Okay, so next I'm going to bake it for 20 minutes.
Lola, are you waiting for the bread? Are you waiting for the bread?
Okay, I just pulled my bread out of the oven and it baked up perfectly in 20 minutes. From here, I'm going to transfer it to a platter and then slice it up so that we can enjoy it for dinner tonight. So as you can see here, I like to cut it into strips, and then I'm just going to go down the middle. So doing a taste test is my favorite part of cooking. Just going to take a little piece. I have some oil with some balsamic vinegar, a little salt and pepper, and here goes my first bite. It's so yummy. I love this recipe. It's so easy to make and really doesn't take that much time out of your day. Thank you for joining me today and following along. I hope I've inspired you to make this recipe. If you've enjoyed the recipe, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. All right, thanks so much. See you next time.